Good day. Welcome to another edition of Ibima Mongo's Perspective on Global Affairs. Before I continue, I urge you to please press the like button. And if you're new to my show, I also urge you to subscribe. The Ukraine war is going on to its fourth year. In fact, the special military operation was launched, I think, February 2022, around February 24th, just after the Beijing Winter Olympics. And after 4 years, we've had a lot of rhetoric. We've had a lot of positions held by Ukraine, by Russia, by the European backers of Ukraine. And we've also had split views, very contrary views of two administrations in America. One that said they will back Ukraine as long as it takes, and another one that is urging Ukraine to follow the path of peace. We get to a point where you feel that something has shifted. For the past 3.5 years, we've been seeing very strong positions. What Kaya Kallas and Ursula von der Leyen and most in the Western press will call Russia's maximalist positions. In the same breath also, we've seen the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have had a 10-point peace plan. That 10-point peace plan has been the focal point of President Zelensky's attempt to bring the Russians to heel, make them pay reparations, make Putin get to face a war criminal tribunal, make the Russians move to the 1991 borders of Ukraine. He has very strong positions he has held for the past few years. But we do get that sense that somehow between these two irreducible forces, one has started to shift. It seems like the will of one of these countries is being broken. Their will is being broken in the battlefields where most of their soldiers are making a hasty retreat. In the several battlefields in Zaporozhye, in Kherson, in Sumy, in Volchansk, and in Donetsk. We see also that their will is being broken in the political space. They are not very effusive, very insistent, very pushful of their own point of view. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the Ukrainians, led, of course, by President Zelensky. So we do get that sense that something has shifted, and this is really a problem. Or maybe it should be something of joy for us, to all of us, to celebrate. There's a shift, and it is a shift that is finally leading to the possibility of peace. The broker of this peace process, the one who has transited, made America take a 180-degree turn from being an instigator, supporter, and proponent and purveyor of this particular battle, this particular political process, this particular war that we are seeing, so to being the one who is now the mediator and arbiter is President Trump. President Trump is the one pushing for peace, and he seems to be hopeful. In fact, he's very, very of the belief that we are closer to peace than we have ever been at any point in this war. This is what he said in his tweet. President Trump, over the past week, my team has made tremendous progress with respect to ending the war between Russia and Ukraine, a war that would never have started if I were president. Last month, 25,000 soldiers died. The original 8-point peace plan, which was drafted by the United States, has been fine-tuned with additional input from both sides, and there are only a few remaining points of disagreement. In the hopes of finalizing this peace plan, I have directed my special envoy, Steve Witkoff, to meet with President Putin in Moscow, and at the same time, Secretary of Army Dan Driscoll will be meeting with the Ukrainians. I will be briefed on all progress made, along with Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles. I look forward to hopefully meeting with President Zelensky and President Putin soon, but only when the deal to end this war is final or is in its final stages. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter, and let's hope all that peace can be accomplished as soon as possible. President Trump is the new person who is going to bring peace to the world. He is very, very hopeful that that will happen. He's very sure that it's about to happen. So what may be causing the change in the position of the Ukrainians? You will see that the Ukrainians do still have their support. They have their backing of the Europeans. Europeans are unrelenting. They are completely committed to backing the Ukrainians. Yeah. Slaven the Lion is. Kaya Kallas is. The European Council President is. Not to talk about France, the leaders of France, Britain, and Germany. If you add also the Baltic states, all are, Poland is. It still has very strong European backing. Just that somehow it doesn't think it's enough. The Europeans don't muster any power. They can produce weapons for him. They can provide funding for his budget. They are just full of talk, a lot of talk. And they may just have come to the realization that as long as the Americans are not swinging and pushing, as the last president had, it may have finally come to that point where Zelensky may just be forced to start to seek peace. President Zelensky had a very fruitful meeting today, very fruitful. All these people I just called, those countries that constitute the coalition of the willing, they had a meeting with him to fine-tune their position with him so that they can take a common ground when they meet with President Trump.
Ursula, and all, of course, all the leaders of the coalition. Truly appreciate that you all stand with us, with Ukraine, and that we are working together for our shared security. Right now, when it comes to security, there is nothing to divide between us, and there are no separate issues. Everything affects all of us, and everyone needs to be fully informed. We firmly believe security decisions about Ukraine must include Ukraine. That was our position in Geneva. And always security decisions about Europe must include Europe, and the same applies to Canada, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, other countries, and every nation. And this
security involvement regarding Ukraine Europeans should involve Europeans. In fact, he has said he's very conciliatory these days, very, very conciliatory. He doesn't act like one who is very entitled. He's very calm. There's something about the demeanor of President Zelensky that has shifted so dramatically that you would think that despite all the support of the Europeans, he may have taken a very critical decision. After all, it is his people who are losing and dying in the battlefields. It is his people who are going to have a very cold winter this year, not the British, not the French, not the Baltics. He may have come to that realization that Ukraine is being used by some very bad actors. Ukraine is a bulwark against the European states. It's a bulwark against the Russians and the Baltic states. Ukraine is being used as a proxy in a war that we know they have no chance to win. And now, with the Americans stepping back, the possibility of winning is almost non-existent. We are seeing it in the battlefield. Every day they are losing outstanding amounts of territory, very much so. But it's not just the loss of territories, it's also the loss of human. The Russians have crafted new methods and new methodologies of killing of the Ukrainians. And they have evidence. The evidence is in the drone footages that they put out there for us to see every day. It's for each drone video that the Ukrainians put out, the Russians put out almost 100. It's a mismatch. So Zelensky says that he's ready to meet with Trump, and he's open to accepting most of the peace plan. The president, he suggested that European partners should join. No, he was this time around as a courtesy or just to quieting the favor of the Europeans. The Americans put what you call a catfish. Just Marco Rubio was part of that particular meeting. So Marco Rubio created let me say, chemistry that kept the Europeans quiet. Nevertheless, after the meeting, Ursula von der Leyen, true to type, did make a statement. She did. She made a statement, and in that statement, she talked about, of course, what she always talks about, Europe's unrelenting support for the. Today, the partners of the coalition of the willing convened to discuss the ongoing negotiations towards a just and lasting peace for Ukraine. Anyway, she said she welcomed it. She welcomed the president of Marco Rubio in the call. She believes that sanctions is working against the Russians and that it is very important to continue these sanctions. Sanctions against Russia's economy are shrinking the resources of Russia, and it is helping to reduce the ability of Russia to wage war of aggression. She says they will continue to engage in these sanctions until Russia is willing to engage to the credible path of peace. Because as she sees it, Ukraine's security is Europe's security. Ukraine's interest is the interest of Europe. And it is very central that financing of Ukraine, including the use of immobilized Russian assets, should be achieved. There's nothing they have to offer to Ukraine. Rhetoric. What in Nigeria we will call Tori stories, just talk. The person who can do something has decided it's not doing again, and that's America. I want to reiterate, I have said many times, and I will say again, President Trump is not going to support Ukraine. All he can do for them is to be an arbiter. They either take it or they leave it. And indeed, he did put this towards for them to say. He put the fact that they are losing very badly. I'll get to that later on. But as the Ukrainians, as the Europeans are posturing, one person who is not very impressed about all that is going on is Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia. He's not impressed by all that is going on and all the goings on and all the rhetoric of the Europeans. He does believe that Russia and is insisting that whatever the amendment is going on in that plan, whether it is a 28-point plan, 98-point plan, it should continue to reflect the spirit and letter of the understanding reached between President Putin and President Trump at the Alaska summit. He says that Europe has no place in these talks about settling the Ukraine conflict because, as he sees it, they insist on using Kiev as a proxy to try to defeat Russia. So, speaking with during the France Russia Dialogue Association, Lavrov accused European elites of long wishing Russia harm and misfortune, citing an aggressiveness with a Russophobic tint that he said continues to dominate Western European class. You don't need to get any further explanation for me. You just look at the British press or listen to the British in their parliament. You will understand what he's saying. Listening to France and the elites of France, you will understand what you say. So ultimately, he just said they have no place in that dialogue. No one listens to Europe anymore regarding Ukraine. European insist. He says nobody listens to the Europeans. Trump's United States can no longer be considered as an ally. This is a very strong statement. And who do you think will be making a statement like that? Because Trump is no more giving money to the Ukrainians. He's no more giving military support to the Ukrainians. He's no more telling the Ukrainians that they will support them as long as it takes. Yes, there's a person who used to hold the role that Kaya Kallas is holding today. His name is Borrell. Is the former high representative foreign affairs of Europeans. Now he's an ordinary citizen. But today he put out a very strong statement. He said that what in the Bible they said to attend to Israel, we have no place in the hands of David. He actually said something like that. He said Trump is no more an ally of the United States because as far as he sees it, Trump has made the Europeans to cower to him. They have appeased him. They have tried to sign deals with him. They have signed a deal to spend $750 billion over the next 3 years to buy oil and gas from America. They've signed a $600 billion investment plan with the Americans. They've signed everything they could just to keep Americans in this war and in Europe. Trump has indicated that he's not going to do the bidding and the wishes of the Europeans to help them to fight this war. So he has come out and said that he will not, as far as it's concerned, Europeans should look away from America. And it may be the reason why the Europeans are very much dogged now. One, we should know that the peace plan that President Trump put forward includes $100 billion that should be used jointly between America and Russia in reconstructing Europe. That money already we know is in Euroclear, is in Europe, and Europe is not going to want to release that money. But all the spending and expenditure excludes the Europeans. They have no place in this 26-point peace plan. In fact, it was so bad that a minister in Lithuania is insisting that they should seize the money, give it to Ukraine, and that way, they will have a seat on the table. Lithuania, or the people of 2 million, very, very worried now. They are worried about their future. They are worried. They are the most belligerent, the most cantankerous, followed by Estonia, among the Baltic states, who rather than build good relationships with the Russians, went to be in NATO. They now have agency, and they know that 37 states of NATO should come and help them beat a traditional historical foe. It is unraveling. That plan is not working according to plan. Anyway, one person who feels that this war has come to the point where it's a test of will and that Putin is riding out the Europeans in this particular regard is one very big hawk, retired Army General called Jack King, an American who believes so much in the cause of the Ukrainians. He has been a hawkish. He has felt that America should do everything to support Ukraine. He has almost even insisted that they should even be part of this war. But finally, he has come to the realization that President Putin has ground them down to the point where they are losing the will to continue. One person is finally blinking. This is what Jack King had to say.
test of will. And it comes down to that. And that's where Putin is coming from. He wants to break our will here because we're all so frustrated with the dying and the killing and the war going on now, closing on 4 years.
Yeah.
So he has been a very tough negotiator. He talks nice, but he plays hard here.
Sure does.
And we'll see if he's willing to come to the table and make any concessions on this. That remains to be seen. The fact.
So it says, I believe that war is essentially a test of will, and it all comes down to that. And Putin acts from exactly this position. He wants to break our will because we are all so tired of death, killings, and this war that has been going on for almost 4 years. He describes Putin as polite in tone, but ruthless in practice. So he says that it seems like the Americans, the Ukrainians, the Europeans are losing in this test of will. Anyway, one of the things that finally came out is that even President Trump actually said that the tide has turned. He recognizes that the tide has turned in this war. And he says Russia, and despite everything that many people may think, Russia is actually making compromises. Today on Air Force One, this is what President Trump was asked, and this is what he said.
And back to Russia. I know at one point you said they shouldn't have to get any better.
It's really up. Look, the way it's going, if you look, it's just moving in one direction. So eventually that's land that over the next couple of months might be gotten by Russia anyway. So do you want to fight and lose another 50, 60,000 people? Or do you want to do something now? In some cases, the land is going in the other direction. So they're negotiating. They're trying to get it done. You want to have a border? You can't have a border that goes through a highway or a border that goes through.
So he's insisting that the war is going in only one direction. It's going in the direction that means that more territory is being taken off of Ukraine. And he believes that the Russians are conceding, that they have considered that they are going to stop their fighting at the point where it is, but that there are so many discussion points that are very important. Anyway, he was ambushed. He was asked almost 1 million questions, and all those questions seem to be questions that worry the Western press. The legacy press is very much a pro-Ukrainian press. No, don't make any mistake about that. You only find points like mine, and on the internet, people who have a dispassionate view of it, who looks at how the war is going, and tell the story that try to support some truthfulness using information that we have. They are not necessarily the propaganda and the narratives we want. We see things as it is and we say it. But we don't, of course, you won't see us on BBC, you won't see us on CNN. But there are a lot of YouTube channels that are doing that now. And so it comes to the point where you come to think that most of this media is warmongering. They love the war. They want the war to continue. And if there's any of this media you will want to know, it's the British media. Their Financial Times, and of course, in America, yeah, we have CBS, we have Bloomberg, the usual suspects, CNN, Fox, they always have this news that they want you to believe regarding, one, Trump is not supporting the Ukrainians enough, or two, the Russians will not ever agree to peace. I just want to put a few of the headlines of the Western media here. One, this is actually putting Ukraine in very good light here. Ukraine is not making trouble for President Trump. Ukraine agrees to peace proposals with only minor details to settle, officials say. So Ukraine is a good guy here. They have agreed to all the peace proposals of President Trump. Yeah, Bloomberg tells us that Witkoff advised Russia on how to pitch the Ukrainian plan to Trump. So Witkoff was supposed to be coaching President Putin on what to do and what to say, how to approach the matter. In fact, President Trump was asked this question in his plane interview, and he said it's normal because they will have to come up with points that both parties agreed to. So he expects that Witkoff will be able to talk to and tell the Russians that this is how you need to put this thing before us and all that. He didn't see it as anything too bad, but the way Bloomberg put it, they brought out a transcript and made it look like Witkoff is very pro-Russian, very, very pro-Russian. Of course, Financial Times is telling us that Russia signals it could reject modified US peace plan for Ukraine. Yes, already you can see that they are signaling that Russia may be an obstacle to this particular war. Well, let's just go to the battle situation. We can carry on with this back and forth between these parties in this Ukraine war, and it will never come to an end. But one thing we know is that there's been a big shift. We may just be seeing the end of this war, and President Trump may indeed be getting close to it because, as I see it, Zelensky may have come to the realization that the Europeans, despite all their claims and talk of support, may not just be able to support them. And it may just be in the interest of Ukraine and the future of the Ukrainian people that he does come to some form of an agreement that is being pushed and forced on him by both Trump and by both the successes of the Russians. I want to talk about that success here. Menograd. This is This is what came off an attempt by the Ukrainians to get out of their very tight encirclement in Menograd. It hasn't been going very well for them. They lost a lot of equipment, a lot of military equipment at this intersection, and it just shows you the capacity and the power of what the Ukrainians or the Russians are doing. Another thing too you will see is that the Russians are using drones. They are using drones at a level that is it's not as if the Ukrainians are not using drones too, but we should remember that the Russians set up a drone unit called the Rubicon, and then that, I think, airborne unit, and they have now embedded them to all their departments, all the battle formations that they have. It's now a standalone unit on its own. And we see this kind of complete attack. They call it kill zones. When they have their drones all over you, there's no escape. And so when the Russians come and say that they have encircled a particular city, this is what they mean by it. They don't need to be, it's not a physical encirclement anymore. It's that they have fire control over every single logistic route you may have. This also is another one. This year is in the Oskol River. The Oskol River, I think in the Kharkiv area there, and they've been, the Ukrainians have been trying to repair this bridge to get to the other side of it, escape from Kupiansk and Kharkiv region, and it's just not working for them. The Russians have made sure that they have complete fire control over that. Any attempt to rehabilitate the bridges that they have there, the Russians are not playing. They're not playing at all. It's not a good one. And of course, we know now that the Russians have gotten into Heliopoli. They've entered into Heliopoli and they're advancing at a very, very fast rate. Obviously, it just seems like Heliopoli will fall this time. And it is just this kind of pressure, especially in Zaporozhye, where they have not only Heliopoli, but Orikov on the west of Heliopoli. They are both cities almost the same size, and the Russians are moving into it, advancing in Vostochny in the Sumy region, advancing also in already Kupiansk. We already know that they have, they say they have 15 battalions of Ukrainians encircled there. They're also moving in Liman. They're all over. The cities are plenty. Those ones are in Kharkiv. Then they are rounding up the ones in Luhansk, which they already have almost 99% sewn up. And then they're also moving in Donetsk. The Donetsk one is the hard one. That's where they still have Kramatorsk, Konstantinovka, Sevyansk, and Sloviansk. That is still a hard nut to crack. It will not be an operation that will end this year, despite the fact that the Ukrainians in their back foot. And I would just want to add one last story. The story has to do with Sudan and the fact that Hemeti, Hamdan Dagalo. He's called Hemeti. He's the leader of the RSF. And he came out the other day, the Rapid Support Forces. He came out and he said that he's going to do a 3-month ceasefire. This is coming off of President Trump's statement that he will look into the Sudan crisis, because when the Saudi Crown Prince came to visit America, the Saudi Crown Prince urged him that since you are master in bringing peace to several regions, why not look to Sudan also? Sudan has been caught up in some serious geopolitical cesspool, and it is a very unfortunate thing. Big powers are playing in Sudan, and the Sudanese people are suffering. Ironically, the big powers are not the big traditional big powers you will know. But Egypt has an interest there, Turkey has an interest, and UAE has an interest, even Saudi Arabia have an interest. It just depends on which side of the divide they are. But some are supporting the military president, the one who is the military president, Boha, and then the others are supporting the Hemeti. But Hemeti today or yesterday said he was going to put a unilateral ceasefire. It's left to see if the Sudanese army will respond. Anyway, this is where I end my video for today. If you're new to my show, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until my next video, you have a good day.